So Salon 7 is in partnership with Jack Daniels. It is our Black Urban Society Legacy Awards. We created this program when we realized that, it's Black History Month, but there are people who are making history every single day. We are doing this in mind with the legacy of Nearest Green, who is the first master distiller for Jack Daniels. And when Nearest Green was working with Jack Daniels to create the whiskey that we all drink today and that we're all drinking right now, I don't think Nearest realized that he was creating a legacy. He was just doing what he loved to do, and that was create whiskey. And you'll see today that the legacy makers that we have, that we will be presenting with fabulous awards and honoring today, I don't think they knew when they created what they were doing that they were creating a legacy. They were just really passionate about the work that they were doing. They were passionate about the fields and the careers that they had, and they were raising the bar constantly, every single step of the way. So, without further ado, I want to bring up my honorees for 2023. Let me get Calvin Butts, Michaela Salon. Watch your step. Yeah, so it's good anywhere. Just watch your step. Don't make us pull our insurance, okay? Who else? Okay, 1, 2. Ouija Theodore. We have Charles Hardwick. How are you thinking? Someone else sit anywhere? Let me see who's up here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, where's Richard Beavers, who is the fabulous owner of this beautiful gallery space. Where did he go? He went downstairs. Okay, and then one of my dearest friends, Andre Mack. Andre, where's Andre go? Hey, Andre. Okay. So, I guess we'll wait for Richard. No, we won't. Okay. Do not wait. Oh, okay. So anyway, so these are our honorees for 2023, and I just really want to allow them an opportunity to share their story. Okay, so before we do this, I want to talk about what a salon means. Does anyone, we're in New York, so like salons were really big during the Harlem Renaissance. Does anyone know what a salon is? Someplace to meet and have a conversation. But they were like the best of the best. They were like exclusive rooms where we had all of our like history, like leaders and advocates and artists and musicians all coming together to share thoughts in a room. So this is a sacred space, and I hope you all feel very exclusive for being here and having this thought-provoking salon conversation tonight. So with that being said, do we have another mic to share? Okay, so I'm going to go to that one. I don't want to, okay. This one's not on. Testing. All right. So, where's Richard?
He's coming. Hold on here.
All right, so, Michaela, come sit in the center, sis. Be the fabulous woman on this panel and sit in the center.
I was trying to like chill in the cut.
No, chill in the cut. You gotta glow. You gotta glow in the center. All right, so, testing, am I on? Can you guys hear me? Okay, so one of the first questions that I want to ask our panelists is, what was the spark that got you into the careers that you're at? And again, like, we still don't know who you guys are, so I want you to take some time to tell like who you are and what you do question, let's talk about like what was the spark that got you to who you are and where you are today?
Want me to start? Okay.
Yes, and we're just gonna pass it down.
All right. Calvin Douglas Jr., originally from Savannah, Georgia, general partner at East Chop Capital. We're a private equity firm. We operate luxury vacation rentals in our first two funds. We launched our first fund in 2018. Friends and family, we raised about $4 million. We raised about $4 million in our first fund to buy luxury vacation rental homes.
You gotta take the reverb off that.
Can you guys hear me? Testing.
Is that better?
Is that better? Okay. So again, East Chop Capital, general partner, Calvin Butts. Our first fund is focused on the vacation rental home market. We went door to door, really in the Black community, and raised about $4 million from accredited investors, which was unheard of. And we have turned that into a phenomenal portfolio of about $8 million worth of luxury vacation rentals, and our investors have experienced 27% returns net of fees, and we are creating wealth in our community. And we've gone on to launch a second fund. We're raising $50 million, and we're doing very, very well in the vacation rental space. We have a community of 200 investors who are all predominantly folks of color, and we are creating passive income and building wealth in the community. And it's really exciting because we have access to deal flow that most people don't get access to. I do a lot of personal investing, and it's opened up a lot of doors for me to share that with my investor base. And we are putting folks in venture capital deals, private equity deals. We're putting them in funds that normally they would not have access to on everyday investing or from a financial advisor, just due to networking and building great relationships. So very excited to build wealth in our community. So that's what we do at East Chop Capital. So the spark for me was, I was fortunate enough to grow up. Father was a physician, so I grew up in Savannah, Georgia. I had access and exposure to neighbors and folks in the town that were doing very well, that were making investments and buying real estate. And I would say for me, it was just seeing the lack of access that our people have to opportunities to really build wealth. And I just became fascinated with wealth and being in rooms and listening and raising my hand and trying to get a piece of a deal or try to get involved in a deal. So the aha moment for me was just a few times just sitting in a room, listening to folks talk about the deal flow that they were experiencing and the deals they were in or the deals their parents were in, and just realizing that unless somebody puts us in these rooms and raises their hand, that we just won't ever get access to these type of investments and deals. And I just became very passionate about figuring out how to get in the rooms, how to become interesting enough that they want me to sit next to them or at the table, and then offering me a chance to bring not just myself, but my group or my people with me. And it's just been an aha moment, ever since then. I've tried my best to share as much deal flow and opportunity to outstanding private equity investment opportunities that are out there.
Thank you.
Nice.
Hello, good evening. My name is Charles Hardwick. I work in the bar and spirits industry. Most of you, I think, are enjoying a little bit of that world tonight through Jack Daniel's Nearest Green. I have been in the bar and spirits industry for about 30 years. I'm a lifelong New Yorker. And my career path has really started very humbly working at like Southern barbecue joints, and really like back in the day when there was no such thing as cocktail culture and like people were drinking, one-in-ones, we would call them like Jack and Cokes or Lynchburg lemonade, which also had Jack Daniels in them. And then really eventually somewhere around 20 to 25 years ago, I started working at this very cool place, which only recently closed. It was in Soho. It was called Pravda. It was owned by a guy named Keith McNally, who is, turned out pretty well. He's done okay for himself. He owns Pastis and Balthazar, for those of you that are in like restaurant nerds. That kind of like really, that was really when some measure of spark happened in my career, when I realized that, this wasn't just a way to make money and just to be maybe somewhat of the center of attention for a moment or two while you're shaking a cocktail, but also to really create experiences for people. People I'm sure enjoy spirits, they enjoy cocktails, they enjoy music, they enjoy conversation, but they really get excited when you can create a unique experience for them. And that led me into the world of cocktails, because that's a very elevated and liquid way of telling a story. And now, my most recent sort of journey has led me to luxury hotels, 5-star hotel in the Mandarin Oriental. And just going off brand here for a moment, I just started recently with Moet Hennessy as their first ever portfolio in Salon. I'm stoked about that. I'm stoked that I'm able to be here with you all and tell a little of my story, meet these wonderful people, and be part of this wonderful event. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Michaela Pabon. I am the owner and designer of Dressed in Joy, which is a women's clothing line all about spreading joy through clothing. I'm from Chicago originally, and almost kind of felt like I'm not even supposed to be in this space. I grew up in a very restrictive religious home, and also in a home where it was like, you get a job, you get your 401k, you have your benefits, and that is where you retire. And nothing else was even thought about, talked about. Like, I didn't know any entrepreneurs. And just kind of, it's always something I wanted. I've always wanted to work in fashion. It's just, it has always called me, but I never realized or knew that it was something that could actually be my life, or something that I could actually support myself and my family with. I started Dressed in Joy by accident. I had previous fashion businesses that just didn't do well. I guess they just wasn't the right time. I didn't really know much about marketing, and they helped me to get to where I am now. But I wanted a hoodie that had bright colors and was printed all over and just bold and pretty, and I couldn't find anything. I'm searching for months online, and I couldn't find anything that I wanted. So I was like, just design it, And my husband, who knows some of these guys up here, he's been in men's urban fashion marketing for years, and I was terrified to even tell him that I wanted to do this, because I'm like, he's gonna think it's ugly, and he's gonna hate it, and that it's gonna fail, so I didn't tell him, I didn't tell anybody until the hoodie was actually on its way to me, my first sample, and he actually thought it was cute, so I'm like, okay, maybe I have something, so I got it, put it on, loved it, and really thought I was designing something for myself, and I was so excited about it. I wore it to work the next day. I was working my corporate job at JetBlue, and I wore it to work the next day, and put it on my stories. I used to do my little outfit videos in the bathroom mirror, and people were like, "Oh, what is that? I want one. I want one. I want one." I'm like, "Really? I want this and that?" It was just shocking. So I said, you know what? Let me just go ahead and put this online. I'll put it up for a pre-sale to see how many people do it. If 10 people buy it, I know I got something, right? That's how I felt. Y'all, I had 62 people order a hoodie in one weekend. I was like, what is happening here? So that was in November of 2019, and we've just kind of, I say we because my husband works with me now, and we just have built from there. We have ready to wear now, so dresses and skirts, and just, it's grown, and I'm really amazed that I live this life, that I can actually, like I said, support myself and my family with something that I love, as opposed to, working for someone else.
Hey, I'm Andre Mack. I think I do a lot of things, but I think one of the biggest reasons why I'm here, I make wine for a living. My background is restaurants. I worked at some pretty famous restaurants. Maybe you guys know some of them. Anybody ever heard of McDonald's? Right. I'm from Texas, so I worked at a place called Jack in the Box. I was living a shout out ultimate cheeseburger. And then I worked at a place called Red Lobster. You guys know about that? I didn't learn anything about wine there, right? Like, I think they had 3 wines on the wine list. They were all white Zinfandel. And I have to say, like, you know, I worked in restaurants. I kind of did a thing. I think everybody was moving on. The restaurant business is pretty transient. Everybody is moving on to bigger and better things. And when I got to my bigger and better thing, it sucked. It wasn't what I thought it would be. You know, I was a broker at City Corp Investment Services. It kind of really sucked. I ended up quitting the Star Salon. I ended up getting severance. I never heard of severance before in my whole life. Right, the lady came over to my desk and she's like, hey, so we're thinking about letting people off and you can get paid for, like, I think it was 8 months. And I was like, hold on, so I'm not getting fired, but you're gonna pay me. And she's like, yeah, and I started to pack my shit up. And she's like, no, like in 6 weeks. And I was like, you can tell I'm ready to go. And during the time that I was laid off, my spark was, I think I was watching like Judge Judy. I was watching some judge show, right? Please don't judge me. I couldn't find the remote, and then after that, they would play back-to-back-to-back episodes of the show called Frasier. It was totally, it was like totally still going, blah, 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 blah. I was never really into it. But it was that show about these 2 pompous brothers, about how they interacted with wine, that gave me the courage for the first time to walk into a wine store. I think from the outside looking in, when you don't see people who look like you, you don't think it's for you. And I've always thought the greatest way to foil pretension is through humor. And by watching that show, it gave me the courage to walk into the store for the first time. And then we can fast forward. Since then, I worked at that helped me work at the greatest restaurants in the world. You know, I started making wine back in 2007. It's one of the largest African-American owned wine companies in the world, I guess. And we have a $40 million evaluation.
And I am Andre's assistant. Are you guys familiar?
I love this guy. I
know,
actually had my wine at his store. I showed up at his store at a trunk show. You weren't
Yes,
there. You don't
yes,
know. And I bought my wine when I first started there.
There we go. Are you guys familiar with the story of Jay-Z having to go after DMX? This is it. This is it. Yo, brother. My name is Ouija Theodore, and I am creative director of the Brooklyn Circus. Something happened over there. I don't know what happened, but I am easily distracted. So, folks over there, if you don't mind, silence, please, or walk closer. I know we're all here for the drinks, but let's deal with the panelists. Yeah, I'm creative director of the Brooklyn Circus, and I was born in Haiti. I came here at the age of 8. 100, something son. It's like I'm fed. There's always a Haitian in the house, right? So, always, 100%. So yeah, I started my business, the Brooklyn Circus, in 2006, on the heels of a project that I had before that. And my spark was that I realized that the 5-year plan and the 10-year plan was just too short for me to do what I wanted to do. And what I wanted to do, which I think we've succeeded to a point, was to create the world's best varsity jacket. And 17 years into the business, I think we are on our way, and we have 80 plus more years to go to actually say that and mean it. So that's my story.
So just so that I get this correct, can you repeat the questions, please?
Well, I don't think you were here when I gave you. So the question is, who are you? And what was the spark that launched you into the career that you have and to being the legacy maker that you are?
That's easy. But, so, well, welcome to Richard Beavers Gallery.
That's a Brooklyn night.
That's Brooklyn.
There we go. There we go.
So, my name is Richard Beavers. Thank you for coming. Thank you for honoring me, and congratulations to all the honorees tonight. So, what sparked me very early on is my mother. You know, I grew up in East Flatbush, and it was during a very tumultuous time in Brooklyn, and my mother literally wanted to get me off the block. So she would take me to art galleries in the city, and there was a gallery called Sabaco Gallery. I don't know if there's anyone who's familiar with that. And it was on 12th Street between, I think 12th Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenue. On 13th Street, it was owned by two black women from the Caribbean. And I remember very vividly, I went on a class trip to the museum, and I came home that day, and my mother came home that night, and she said, well, what do you think? And I said, I don't think anything. It was a waste of time. It was boring to me. And at the time, I didn't know it was because I didn't see anything that was a representative of who I was. I didn't see my story, my experiences. I didn't see anything that was a depiction of myself. So my mother said, okay, and she took me to Sabaco Gallery. And when I was a young person, I wanted to play the saxophone. And when we walked in the gallery, there was a man sitting on a brownstone stoop that was, for me, Brooklyn, and he was playing the saxophone. And that was it for me. That was the moment that I developed an appreciation and passion for art. I couldn't articulate it, obviously, at that particular time in my life, or that juncture in my life. But when I think back on it, that's what moved the needle for me. And I spent a lot of time in that gallery. You know, I wanted to be in that space. I needed what that gallery gave me, which was a sense of purpose, to say that I existed and that I mattered. And many years later, I was working at MTV Networks. I worked there for 12 years. I worked in the finance department and HR. And I used to read Black Enterprise religiously. And at the time, I lived in Fort Greene. And one particular issue that I read, it talked about this frame shop called Clinton Hill Simply Art and Framing. And it was owned by, anyone familiar with that? Miss Brown. It was owned by Miss Brown. And it just happened to be that she was doing this project with David Hilliard and Frederica Newton, and it was for the Black Panther Party. And as a young person, my mother was really strict. I had to read all the time. You know, I had to read one book a month at minimum, and I read a lot about the Black Panthers. And I was so intrigued that there was this frame shop that was literally 5 minutes from where I lived, and I never knew it existed. So I made a decision that I was gonna go into that shop on the weekend. So I walked in there, and it was so nostalgic for me because it took me back to the time when I would visit galleries with my mother. And I knew right then, I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. So I talked to Miss Brown, and I said, hey, you know, I don't know a lot about art. I just know that whenever I'm around it, it makes me feel good. And she said to me, you know what? It's not a coincidence you walked in here. I've been thinking to myself all the years that I've been here, I've never had a young black male that worked here. And I said, well, I don't want to work here. I said, I have a job. and I don't know if you can afford me. No, I didn't say that. That's a joke. I didn't say that. But she said, you know what? You can come here and you can work on the weekends. And I went there on the weekends and I interned with her. And, you know, I couldn't play basketball with my boys. And supported my friends supported me. They would actually wait for me outside of the frame shop until I got off, and they would have my clothes for me, and I changed clothes and go play basketball. So that was just, these things just kept falling into place for me, you know. And then I remember there was this elderly woman that used to come up to MTV, and she would sell Avon, and she would go to every single floor and sell Avon. And I'm like, damn, I can do that. I can sell posters. So I started putting together my own little catalogs, and I started presenting the catalogs and giving them to my coworkers and selling posters to them. And then I'd get up on the weekends when I wasn't working with Ms. Brown, and I'd go to Union Square and I'd sell posters. And then there was this Hispanic brother who worked at reception, and it's a purpose of mine to talk to everybody. You know, I want to know what I can about each individual. What are you doing? What are your interests? What motivates you? And he used to always be on his computer, and when I walked over and talked to him, he introduced me to eBay. And he was selling like spare parts to cars on eBay. So I said, yo, can you like show me what's up with this eBay thing, man? And then he showed me the basics of eBay. So then I started selling posters on eBay, and I became a power seller, and I was selling 300 posters And this was during dial-up, y'all. So I would be up.
Oh, yeah.
So I'd leave work, come home, get on the computer, and I'd be up like, I'd be in it, and I'm listening something, and then I'd lose a signal, and I'd have to start all over again. You know, so that got to the point where I was selling like 300 posters a month on eBay. And it literally evolved to that. I did the Tom Joyner cruise for 6 years, and when I got on the cruise, I met Tom Joyner Jr., him and I hit it off, and then I put a proposal together, and then I became the official gallery for the Tom Joyner cruise. And I did that for 6 years. But in doing that, I saw that you could also use art as a tool to raise significant amounts of money for good causes, because we raised a lot of money for UNCF. And then I did that for 6 years, and I was like, okay, it's time for me to do something else. And as I always do, I prayed on it, you know, and I put it in the hands of God, and then it was like, yo, you need to open a gallery. And at that time, I was still working at MTV, and I remember I was sitting at my desk, and my boss called me into her office, and she's like, Richard, you know, we're getting a lot of complaints about your business on company hours. Like, you have to make a decision. And it was an easy decision for me, and I was able to negotiate a 2-year severance package. Yeah.
Real shit.
But it helped that I had a huge file because I work in HR. So I got a 2-year severance package, and I opened up the first gallery in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, and it was important for me to do it there because I wanted to bring art to my community. I wanted a young person to experience what I experienced when I walked in that gallery the first time with my mother. And I opened the first gallery in 2007 in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, and I remember people were like, yo, you're crazy. You'll never do well here. Who's gonna buy art? And I was like, you're gonna buy art, and you're gonna buy art, and you're gonna buy art. You just don't know now, but you're going to buy it. And that was in 2007, and we've done, I mean, like Bisa Butler, we gave her her first show. Nathaniel Mary Quinn, I was one of his first dealers. Genesis Tremaine, you know, so a lot of the artists that started off with us as emerging artists have gone on to do extremely well. And then we expanded and we opened up this space in last year of September, you know. And what I would say for me as an entrepreneur and any people out there that are interested in being an entrepreneur is that I've never done this for the money, you know. It was about an independence and a freedom, but also living in my purpose and being able to look at myself at the end of the day in the mirror and saying that I did something that I felt was significant, and that was a contribution to my community, you know. And I've done well, but it's, once again, it's never been about the money. You know, the importance is your legacy and the contribution that you can make and the significance that you can play in other people's lives.
Thank you for that. So you can see why they're honorees, right? They're like legacy makers. They're dope as hell. Like, they're amazing. But I do want to just ask some follow-up questions. We don't have to go in a row. You guys can jump in. If you feel like answering, yes. If you don't have to. But, you know, we see you now. We see you in your success. We see you from the start to where to spark to where you are now. But let's talk about that journey in between, right? Like, it's not just like, oh, I decided to sell a sweatshirt and then all of a sudden Oprah has my sweatshirt. Like, there's some pitfalls that go in between there as well, right? So let's talk a little bit about the ups and downs, some of the obstacles that come along with becoming a legacy maker, with charting out and going along this journey that that you were created to do, that you were assigned to do, honestly. Y'all don't have obstacles? Because I surely do.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of obstacles. I think we throw around the term entrepreneur as like this kind of trendy thing that goes around, but it is not for the faint of heart, right? I think there is definitely a sustainable, there's definitely a substantial like thing of like having a job and having a check, but being an entrepreneur is like, it's like everything is your fault, everything is like up to you. And you know, I think for me, you know, and for most of us where we come from, there's there's no person that I know that would let me hold $50. Right? Like, let me hold $50, right? The VC in the hood is the drug dealer, right? Like, we don't know anybody with any money. Like, and so I think, I say that to only say that capital was always a problem, right? And for me, I went on to do other things besides building a wine company, you know, opening restaurants and doing other things in my community that felt right to me. But like, I think capital was a big thing for us. And I would just have to say that, yeah, we're sitting up here now and it's all great, but like, I think most of the time, you know, we're all kind of feel like the weight of the world is on our shoulders.
Yeah. Anyone want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, when I first started bartending, which was longer ago than I care to admit, but it was really the early 90s, there were no, you know, almost no black bartenders at all, especially not downtown. You know, there may have been some up in Harlem, you know, but, you know, there's these kind of phases to the bar and the restaurant industry where, you know, there's an ebb and flow to it. I think less so now because, you know, the world has gotten smaller. But, you know, just even trying to get into certain kinds of places and get behind the bar and stay there was really pretty difficult. But I managed to, you know, find some people, one of whom was Kit Downer, I mentioned earlier. Him and his now ex-wife, Mwaganecto, owns the Odeon, which is really just down the street. They had a different vision for hospitality and the kinds of people that could be included as part of their staff. That was another kind of spark that I didn't mention. And then as I grew within the industry, though, I found out that not all owner-operators were like that. And I started to encounter situations where you know, really even up until fairly recently, where I was made to feel like things that objectively are assets would be considered assets. I was made to feel like they were a liability. You know, like even when I first got into the industry, there was a guy who was a partner of Lynn's, who a well-known actor friend of mine, who I won't say who, he suggested me for a job, and the guy didn't give me the job, and he told my friend that I was too big. And it was like, what? That's like, I'm 6'3". You know, like, first of all, that's ridiculous, but, you know, it's just, he was just looking for a reason to, you know, in most instances, being tall was considered something good, you know? And I was quite slim, man, and, you know, just, you know, this always seemed to be something that would come up no matter how successful the place or how much they told me they wanted me there or how much they told me they wanted me to be myself, but not too much, you know? Those things continually came up, and finally, through the support of my mom, the support of my friends and industry colleagues, I have a diverse set of friends, they really sort of like, you know, helped me to understand that, you know, basically I was being gaslit into not having a sense of self-worth. And, you know, I say all of this to say that people out there, everyone is here for a reason, you know, we want to enjoy, you know, have a little bit of whiskey and socialize a little bit and look at some art, certainly. But I think, you know, as far as takeaways, you know, and entrepreneurial takeaways, it really starts with your sense of self-worth and having to sort of push through those challenges where people continually, especially as black people and people of color, make you feel like your skin is a liability, your hair is a liability, your language or your code, your slang is a liability. Or if you have tattoos, you know, when in fact, there's so many people who want to go and see that stuff from around the world. They want to hear your story. They want to like touch your hair. We don't let them do that unless you know them. But you know, all of those things are assets. They're not liabilities. And really, you know, if you just fight through that and don't let anyone gaslight you into thinking otherwise.
So we're almost done. So I know that you all are still getting cocktails in the corner, but if you could just keep your conversation low, so that we can have we can finish this panel discussion.
Close the bar. Close the bar.
Close the bar.
Close the bar.
Sign off the bar. Close the bar.
The bar's already bought out, but yes, shut it down.
Close the bar.
So we talked a little bit about, pitfalls and some of the challenges that come along the way, but let's fast forward a little bit and let's talk about what I like to call the mic drop moment. Let's talk about we've heard the journey, like the spark, how you guys started from Red Lobster to becoming the #1 Black-owned wine maker in the world, and plus many other things that you didn't mention, Andre.
Right.
But let's talk a little bit about, like, is there a mic drop moment for you all? Like, what is that, like, goal that you are constant, that you crush and you're like, okay, that's it, I'm done, I've made my mark? Or does it even exist for y'all?
Does it exist?
Let's talk about that for really quick.
So for me, I would say that doesn't exist. I'm never satisfied. I'm always thankful, pleased, and I know that I'm blessed. But I would say, you know, the industry that I'm in, like many industries, is just it's old white money. You know, art is a place where wealthy people preserve their money. It's an unregulated industry, and to have been able to break through and do these really prominent fine art fairs, but not only do the fairs, but to go there and kick their ass. You know, and to not just show up, but to show out. You know, we did Untitled, which is a major art fair, in 2021, 2022, and both booths sold out preview night, and we did over $600,000 for each booth. To see an artist like Visa Butler have her first solo show with us, and a piece that's $1,500 sold for $75,000 5 years later, and for her to have an average quilt at $150,000. To see Genesis Tremaine, who's an artist that came through us, and a piece that was $3,500 and 4 years ago auctioned off for $440,000 at Sotheby's and Christie's, and then to see, courtesy of Richard Beavers Gallery, you know, a brother who comes from East Flatbush, dropped out of school in the 9th grade, has been incarcerated, and was able to take all of that and turn himself around. And I'm not an art historian, I'm not an expert, I'm 9th grade GED, and to be able to operate and compete, and not even compete, but excel on the highest level possible, and then go from selling posters on the street and eBay to opening up a gallery in Soho. But most importantly is the legacy aspect of it. You know, knowing that Ms. Brown, Leroy Campbell, Sabaco Gallery, Dorsey Gallery, those are my influences as a young person, and I feel like they passed the baton to me. And I know within my heart that I've taken it further, that I'm doing my job. And to see the next young gallerist, the next artist come through here, or even to the Brooklyn space, which is my heart, and to say, yo, if he did it, then I know we can do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And to see, ultimately, to see collectors be able to have art on their walls and be able to pass it on to the next generation, and there be value in that art. So now, it's more than just the art, but we're passing on generational wealth and the educational aspect of all of that. Thank you.
Is there a mic drop moment?
No, there's never a mic drop moment. I think, again, because when you get to a point or you get to a level, you know, if you're unselfish and you're not doing it for the money, I wasn't doing it for the money either, and I'm not doing it for the money, but we do enjoy it. And the reason we enjoy the money is because we can do things. We can create generational wealth. We can pass the mic or pass the craft on to others. And so I really think about the people that are behind me, the ancestors, and also thinking that I am an ancestor, a future ancestor, and thinking in a way of like, okay, what am I going to do now, right? Or what do I need to continue to do in order to reach that level, in order to be, you know, to contribute to a bigger thing, something bigger than me. So even when you do, you work on a big project, or you, again, reach a certain financial level, you know that there's so much more to do for the people that are coming behind you. And so there's always work. So there's never a mic drop. We'll keep working 100 more years.
Well, I'll second all of that, and I think I will comment for everybody. It's always legacy over currency.
Love it. That's kind of a mic drop moment.
Bars.
Yeah, when you say bars.
Bars. It's DMX, man. Poetic Jay-Z.
Let's see what
It's
people
raining
say.
on the mic.
Did they say bars? Is that what it is?
Bars.
Okay.
Stop wrestling.
Like everybody else, I don't know that there's a specific mic drop moment where I'll be like, it's done, this is it, this is all. But obviously I look forward to being in stores like Nordstrom. I look forward to putting out in the universe, my collection with Adidas, or just all these things that I have in my heart that I want to do. But really, for me, it is meeting people randomly, and my daughter is like, my mommy has a clothing line. My mommy has a store. Like, that is just, it really melts my heart, because at 5, she's proud of me, and at 9, my son is proud of me. So how are they going to talk about me when they're teenagers, when they're parents, and they get to talk about their parents to their children? Those are the moments for me that make me feel, it's the legacy that make me feel like I'm really doing something special.
I think for me it's best to begin with something that Samara said at the beginning about, kind of not trying to engineer your success. None of us are probably not, really consciously doing that. Really just kind of following our passion. And that's certainly what I did, especially like, the bar business and the spirits world. First of all, spirits world kind of didn't exist in 1990 like it does now. So there was no career path to chart. It was really just trying to make as much money in tips as possible. But certainly there hasn't been a mic drop moment, but there have been moments that I will choose to use a couple of them as a cautionary tale, which is, there were moments where it was like, well, I got this certain kind of press. Like I was in the New York Times. Somebody asked multiple times, and someone asked me recently, a writer there, a permanent writer, asked me to do a whole feature on cocktails. And both a video element, and it was the only time the Times has ever done this, and the only time before or since. And I remember thinking like, all right, this is like, now my consulting business is really gonna take off. And then it was like, nothing. Nothing. And then there was another instance where I actually got in trouble for this. I was working for a big ownership group, and they're doing really, really, really well. And I posted something on social media, and Eater contacted me and asked me, was I working at this new place? And do you want to talk? And I said, no. I said, I am working there, but that's it. They wrote a whole article about me. It was like I had a PR person. And they even included my website in the article. And they had a great picture of me and nothing. Like no work after that, so no mic drop. So that kept me, sort of kept me going, kept me in terms of like just, keeping me inspired and keeping me sort of humble and understanding that like maybe there isn't such a thing, and I don't know if I believe in that anyway. That said, if there is a mic drop moment, which there isn't, I don't believe it, like I said, it would be the current job that I just got. When I heard that this company that is a luxury company that's the most valuable company in Europe, that's worth $329 billion, and has all these great champagnes and cognacs and stuff like that, was excited to have me be their first ever bartender, mixologist, and create all their drinks for, and drive value for them. That was as close as I will come to a mic drop moment. And it really was very validating, but I choose to use it to inspire me further and choose to share the story, hopefully as a source of inspiration to anyone who cares to listen.
Thank you. I would say for me, the mic drop moment, I would say it's probably in 3 buckets. I would say for my family, it's starting to see a little bit of it, starting to see my children understand their wealth and want to manage it, want to get involved in the businesses and the different assets that we have and manage in our family office, as well as eager to get involved in our firm. I would say career-wise, I would love to see East Shop Capital with $1 billion in assets under management. I think we need more black fund managers having that type of assets and having that type of capital that they can utilize and leverage and just kind of creating that exposure for those that want to come behind us in finance. I would say from a legacy perspective, I mean, you know, those that know me know that I'm very passionate about HBCUs and the Florida Hampton University. I would say a mic drop moment for me will be when I establish free tuition for all students at Hampton University. It's my goal. I've made that commitment. I'm going to figure it out some kind of way.
And on that note, I will say thank you for being so amazing. Thank you all for being so successful and so progressive. For really following that spark, pushing past all the pitfalls, and never stopping, continuing to raise the bar. Weechi? Oh, Weechi got one more thing to say. Okay.
Before we drop the mic, go out and buy the Brooklyn Circus Cap collaboration in stores now. Let's go.
So if Weechi didn't bring that up, I was about to say, y'all better go to the Gap.
I got mine.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
But it's amazing that you could work with Gap Inc. And like, that's not even that's not a highlight of who you are and what you do. Like, that's just a footnote. You know? So congratulations on that partnership.
Everyone is awesome.
So you see why we chose them to be our 2023 honorees for the Black Bourbon Society Legacy Awards. They are dope as fuck. Like, so inspiring. I truly appreciate you all. I'm inspired by you all. And I have a little award for you. What are they? We have them here? Okay. Our awards are different because we work with Jack Daniels. So, come on out, my ladies. So we have, we selected 3 barrels with Jack Daniels last fall. And so each one of you all get one of those expressions. We did these single barrel projects with Jack Daniels. One is called the Mogul, one is called the Maverick, and one is called the Birthright. And those are all things that make you guys legacy makers. You guys are all moguls, mavericks, and it's in your blood, it's in your DNA, this is your birthright. So on behalf of me and Black Bourbon Society and Jack Daniels, thank you so much. Cheers to you. So thank you all for coming.